Okay, it says we're now streaming live on YouTube.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
We are. Well, Jordan, good evening. It's a bad. Well, let's record it too.
Okay.
Okay, now we're online and recording. Jordan, it's a very strange day. It's Pearl Harbor Day plus 77 years. It's a week, exactly 1 week after the death of George H.W. Bush, and James Alex Field has apparently been found guilty of first-degree murder. First-degree murder, that's premeditated, and I understand that you were at Charlottesville. I hadn't realized that before, but would you tell us about your Charlottesville experience?
Well, I can personally tell you that everything the media said about what happened in Charlottesville is not the complete story. We were not there to start any violence. It was Antifa and Black Lives Matter and all the other left-wing crowd that was the one instigating the violence. But as much as I think they're all scum, I think the bigger scum was Signer, Bellamy, the entire city government of Charlottesville, as along with the police chief, for allowing the violence to take place. And if they
tell me what you personally saw that indicates that they did that. I mean, I've heard that, but if you were there, what did you see that convinced you that they were responsible for it?
They, first of all, we were all in a straight line, and there were counter protesters on both sides, as if they were like closing. We were straight in the middle. If one of those people had a gun, they could have picked us off left and right, which thank God they didn't do that. But I saw several people getting tagged. You know, I got actually sprayed in the face with mace, by the way. And the police officer.
Who sprayed you with mace? Who sprayed you with mace?
Some masked Antifa member just came up and sprayed mace, pepper spray on my face and on my arm. Thankfully, didn't get in my eyes. And also sprayed one of my friends who had gone with me from Augusta to Charlottesville. And the police officers did nothing. They just sat there and let them attack us.
Why? I mean, how did you read the situation? I mean, were they under orders not to? I mean, did you talk to any police about it? I mean, did you try to make a report with the police when this was happening?
I didn't talk to any police personally, but I believe I talked to some people who had talked to police, and I quote you not, one of them said, well, I mean, y'all are white supremacists. I mean, y'all, kind of knew this might happen, which no, we didn't actually expect this to happen. We were just there to have our rally, listen to our speakers, and leave and go home.
I didn't quite understand. This is your actions? What's the word you said?
Oh, this was our actions? I mean,
no, was that the word you used? These were your actions, that you were bringing this on yourself, in other words? Is that what they were accusing you of?
Yeah, I believe that's what
the cops said. You were white supremacists, and so say that again. This doesn't make any sense. Maybe
I had talked with somebody who was there as we were all, we got first. It was supposed to be at Lee Park where the Confederate statue was, and then we had to walk all the way a couple of miles to another park. And I was speaking to several people, and one of them, then we had to walk all the way a couple of miles to another park. And I was speaking to several people, and one of them, then we had to walk all the way a couple of miles to another park. And I was speaking to several people, and one of them, then we had to walk all the way a couple of miles to another park.
You sound like you're at the bottom of the well. We're having a.
Jordan, can you hear me now?
It sounds like there's a bottom of the well.
All right.
That was weird.
Yeah.
I think we're okay now.
Okay. All right. So one of
Give me the last 30 seconds again.
okay. What I was saying is, we were originally going to have the rally at Lee Park, which is where the Confederate monument was.
Right. Gigantic Confederate monument.
Yes, but then we got rerouted by police, to, I forgot the name of the other park, but as we were walking down there, I was talking to several other people, and I believe I talked to another lady who had been there and stuff, and she was asking the cops, well, why aren't you doing your jobs and stuff? And the cops supposedly said, well, I mean, y'all kind of knew this was going to happen, or should have suspected something like this was going to happen.
And who said that exactly?
One of the cops had supposedly said that to one of the protesters.
Oh, but not to you.
Not to me personally, no.
So, and in what capacity were you there, and what were you doing? And I mean, were you part of the Torchlight Parade? I mean, tell me all the mythical elements of Charlottesville. That since I wasn't there, tell me what you were doing.
Me and my colleagues, arrived after the torch rally. We were not able to make it. We had got to our hotel at about 10 or 11 p.m. And basically we were setting up for tomorrow because we were going to get up very early and hopefully find a place that was, near, and also to keep our vehicle from getting smashed by Antifa, because it was a rental car. And I mean, that's pretty much it. Then we just we got up early in the morning, and we left at around, I believe at 10 o'clock, 10:30 in the morning, to go find a parking spot, which it was naturally full. And as we were going to there and stuff, I kid you not, there was a kind of a bus, and out of the bus came a Klan group from Alabama. And, we basically, for safety in numbers, we walked with them, because we didn't want to get attacked on our way there. And as we were getting closer and stuff, it was almost like we saw our guys there, but it was almost like Antifa was kind of like blocking us from like going in. But we did manage to get in with the crowd, and we were just expecting to listen to our speakers and then go back to our hotel. But as we all saw, that just didn't happen.
Well, so where were you when Heather Heyer died? I mean, they used to talk about where were you when JFK died, where were you when Princess Diana died, where were you when Heather Heyer died?
Well, at that time, I heard about it when me and my two colleagues ordered an Uber, and we were on the way back to our vehicle. And that's when I heard about it, or I read about it on, the news. And I mean, I was nowhere near where it happened, so I can't really say, I saw it or anything.
Well, I mean, what are your feelings about this conviction? I mean, you didn't know Mr. Fields personally, and doubt if you knew Heather Heyer either. But what do you think is going on here? I mean, you said before we got online that it was par for the course. or something
know,
like that,
it was par for the course.
or to be expected in some way.
Well, I mean, as I said before, I think the way that it was done and the city government, as well as the police there, did not do their jobs. You know, they practically let Antifa and Black Lives Matter and other left wingers attack us. So, I mean, from what I heard, it was self defense. I mean, I heard that, you know, James Fields was getting into his car. You know, he was just going home, and they surrounded his car and they were throwing things. And I guess in a moment of panic, he just, you know, just basically panicked. And, you know, while, like I keep saying before, I don't really wish anybody dead, but I mean, it just happened. I mean, he was there at the wrong place at the wrong time.
This is part of the news feed. I looked up some of the reports, and images shared by Fields on Instagram encouraging the running down of protesters, which were posted in the lead up to the Unite the Right rally, acted as key pieces of evidence in the trial. Did you ever hear of that before today?
No, I can't really say I have. I mean, from what I heard, you know, basically all the guy did was just, you know, share names on Twitter or something of that sort. But
John Hill, an attorney representing the 21-year-old Fields, claimed that his client did not maliciously drive through the crowd and instead only stepped on the gas because, quote, he feared for his safety due to the large group of counter-protesters gathered near him. Prosecutors, however, argued that Fields was angry that day over the fighting taking place between the two sides. Prosecutor Nina Alice Anthony pointed out that Fields, who a former teacher said, was this evidence in the trial? This sounds like hearsay to me. A former teacher said was fascinated by Nazism and Adolf Hitler, twice posted on Instagram before the rally an image of a group of people getting struck by a car.
I mean, that's news to me.
It's very strange that they wouldn't have. You'd think we would have been seeing these things over and over again in the news about this trial, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but they kept it quiet, you know, for like over a year. And this is similar to, you know, the way Dylan Roof's imprisonment. You know, we didn't hear nothing about that kid for, you know, over a year and a half.
You know, it's interesting. How old are you?
I'm 32.
You're 32. Do you remember Court TV at all from the 90s?
I might have caught a little bit of it.
I don't know why they destroyed or abolished Court TV, but I think it was because it made some of these trials look a little bit farcical and not totally credible. And I'm wondering if there was some strange stuff going on here. This case is about Fields' decision to act on that anger, prosecutor Nina Anthony explained. And that's where the article ends. Even there's not a lot of detail on here. I mean, I guess eventually there will be a trial transcript that we can follow, but he's facing 30 more charges in a separate federal case over the same attack. And the HuffPost, oddly enough, the HuffPost is not as negative as that one I was reading you before. It doesn't say anything about his Instagram. I mean, that sounds very interesting to me. If he envisioned, I mean, that would be premeditation, right? If he envisioned this crime before he even went there, that would certainly be significant. The Huff Post, which is not exactly, a pro-white publication, uh, it doesn't mention anything about that. It says view videos from several angles and photos from the attack show Field flying down 4th Street in his car, plowing into protesters, then backing up and hitting more. That's bad enough. Field's defense asked the court to find him guilty of lesser charges of unlawful wounding and involuntary manslaughter, arguing that he was immature at the time of the attack and he drove into protesters out of fear. I mean, tell me something. Did you feel afraid when you were there? I mean, I'm sorry Awiala isn't here with us because I know she has said she was afraid.
I mean, yeah, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't afraid, but it was more for concern for the safety of me and my colleagues that were there because
Were you actually with Awiala in Charlottesville?
I don't believe I met her, but I knew she went there.
Okay, you know about her.
Yeah.
You know about her. How many were in the group that you were with?
It was just me and 2 other fellows that were there at the time.
And what were your plans? I mean, everybody talks about what the intent of Charlottesville was. What was your intent in going to Charlottesville?
My first intent was one. Oh.
Hey, I'm doing the show right now. Sorry. Talk to you in a few minutes. My son. Okay. Sorry about that.
All right. Well, my first intent was to go there in support of in support for our Southern monuments and symbols of heritage. 2, for the right to freedom of speech, the right to have the whole rallies, which is guaranteed in our First Amendment. And 3, to meet like-minded folks, even if we didn't agree with one another. We all shared a common interest. Those were my main purposes for going there.
Did you feel you accomplished any of those?
To some degree, yes, I do, because I finally was able to meet with some folks that I've been friends with on Facebook for a while and meet them in person. But at the same time, I really wish that it had gone the way it was originally planned. But of course,
and how was it originally planned? I mean, tell me a little bit more about that.
Was basically to listen to a whole bunch of speakers. There was Richard Spencer, Augustus Invictus. I'm trying to think who else. I think Dr. Hill of the League of the South was there, and several others. I mean, we were just here to listen to several speeches and then go on our way. I mean, that was the only purpose being there. I mean,
did any of those speeches get delivered?
No, none. We weren't able to, because the police moved us out, told us, no, you can't have this at Lee Park because of Antifa, doing their things, and therefore you got to go to the other park. And so as we were going there, which also, by the way, that was when the governor declared that anybody that didn't disperse was going to be arrested. And so basically the rally was canceled. And, but we still went to the other park to, converse with other people. And lo and behold, Antifa also came over there to start stuff. We were not over there to start any kind of stuff. It was Antifa and Black Lives Matter and all the other left-wing types.
And did you have any civil interaction with them at all? I mean, or was it all yelling and?
just yelling, cussing, and you know, using all sorts of vulgarities and flipping us off, and I mean, just a whole assortment of freaks. I mean, I remember passing through one guy wearing the hammer and sickle shirt and a dress, and then you had a whole bunch of people dressed as clowns or something. They had stupid signs like
You said, uh, a shirt with a dress, did you say?
yeah, there was this older guy with a hammer and sickle shirt of the old Soviet Union, but the guy was also wearing a dress and saying that we're not going to let you take power and stuff. You know, we're going to stop you. Yeah, that's the kind of freak shows we saw. Nothing but freaks.
You think the purpose was just to disorient you? I mean, or was he really a trend? I get confused. Transvestite?
No, I mean he had a full, a full beard. He was just wearing a dress. I mean, I don't know why, but I can only say what I saw.
No
And
chance it was a Scottish kilt.
no, no. I mean, if it was a kilt, it was a very girly kilt.
Well, uh, how long were you up there? I mean, how long were you actually in Charlottesville?
We were there. We arrived Friday night and we left Sunday morning,
So 2 nights.
and it was a 8-hour trip to and back.
Three days total.
Yes.
And you said you were with like 1,000 people.
It was up to 1,000. I don't know what the exact numbers were, but it had to have been about over 1,000, even though originally it was said to have been 700 and 800.
So were you in the Torchlight Parade the first night?
No, sir. I arrived at about 10 or 11 p.m. on Friday night, and that was when it had already ended.
Too bad. That sounded very dramatic.
Yeah.
And so, what lessons do you feel like? I mean, this thing with obviously they will appeal in Mr. Fields' case, and I mean, I'm a little bit shocked by this detail of Instagram photos of him envisioning hitting people with cars. I mean, if that is true, that is pretty strong evidence. That's from Mediaite blog. I don't know what authority that's based on or anything, but that's where I got those details about the Instagram. And I mean, what lessons do you think we can learn out of this? I mean, James Kessler, I went to the one last summer in Washington where there were 20 of us and about 30,000 of them. But of course, there were also 5,000 police, so they weren't taking any chances with anything at all. And it was a little bit surreal, but it was safe. Damn it, it was so safe. I mean, it was. It couldn't have been more safe. We couldn't have been more safe if we were inside of Fort Leavenworth. So, what lessons do you think we can take out of Charlottesville 2017?
I think we can learn that not always will our First Amendment rights be guaranteed, and that there will be powers to be that will stop us from doing what we're doing. But at the same time, I think it shows that the government does fear nationalists.
Okay, how how would you present that argument? How, why, uh, what do they fear? Well, what do they fear of? I mean, I guess obviously their response is, yeah, we're scared of it. You look, you killed this girl. And I'm sure they would say that right to you too. You were part of the same movement as James Field, and so I mean, you know, you're a co-conspirator, right?
Oh, I mean,
Don't mean to
I'm,
give any prosecutors ideas if they come and you know, knock on your door tomorrow. Please don't blame me, but it seems like it's all far-fetched enough that I could be a co-conspirator. Everybody on the pro-Confederate side could be a co-conspirator. Michael Hill could be a co-conspirator. But what is it that they fear then? Why do they? Do they really fear that we're going to go around hitting people with cars or burning crosses in their face or something?
yeah, they apparently must. And it's not just pro-Confederate or pro-white movements too. I mean, you even have alt-right groups like Proud Boys that originally were considered, extremists, and now the FBI kind of backed off it. But I think they just don't want any opposition to them.
So is it? So it's fear of us, you know, fear of perhaps Jordan Hewitt running for Congress. Is that the worst thing that can happen to them? That you become politically active and don't take the streets, but instead take to the ballot box?
Well, I mean, if I mean only if basically nationalist candidates start getting a very huge what's the word um, I'm sorry, it's nighttime and my mind's going blank.
Well, I
But
mean, I'm just thinking
oh,
if you were to run for Congress, which I really kind of hope you will, but if you were to do it, you know that they're going to ask you at maybe daily, why did you go to Charlottesville? First, did you go to Charlottesville? And then why did you go to Charlottesville?
I mean, I would be straightforward and to the point. Yes, I went there, and I went there for one because I support my Southern heritage and preservation of the Confederate monuments, which yours and my ancestors fought and possibly died trying to defend the Southland. And I also went because I believe in freedom of speech. I mean, I don't see why anybody would have a problem with that, but apparently powers that be have a problem with that because they honestly don't believe in the right to freedom of speech, or at least they believe in freedom of speech unless you're pro-white.
Do you think it's fair to say, or is it too much to say, that this prosecution of James Field is a warning against exercise of free speech?
I certainly believe they're making him an example to try to discourage, nationalist or pro-white folks, or, just anybody, even possibly on the right, to not act or to not uh, uh, speak their minds. I believe he's being used as an example for population control to keep people silent and to keep them in line with the system. At least that's what my take is.
Were any did you have? But you had no direct interaction with police, uh, and so obviously nobody in your nobody in your group was detained or arrested, right?
No, absolutely not.
Do you know anyone else who was?
Not well. I mean, there's a fellow in northern.
Jason Kessler.
I did not hear anything about him until I heard about Unite the Right. That's the only time I really ever heard of him.
So
And
you really didn't meet any of the other conservative pro-Confederate protesters?
I met Brad Griffin of Occidental Descent, and he's a League of the South member. And I met Dr. Hill and a few other of them. And I met Sam Dixon. And I mean, a few of my friends, met a few other people. I mean, there were just so many people, I'd have to come back and write a list of who all I met.
So, do you regret going?
No, I really do not regret, because to me, I didn't do anything wrong. I mean, I went there, to do nothing wrong, but apparently, I mean, like I said, I wish it would have been dealt with better.
It's hard to picture it could have happened any worse. I mean, everybody who's been there that I've heard, you, Jason, Awiale, everybody concurs that basically the police wanted to provoke an incident. They wanted something to happen. And I mean, the whole thing with Fields is really fascinating to me because, people have been killed in lots of riots. The riots have been a lot worse than this one. Public disorders in Chicago, in Detroit, in a dozen or more other places. In my lifetime, in the early 60s, or the late 60s, rather, early 70s. And, I guess one of the things that bothers me most about Heather Heyer is I have heard that she actually died of a heart attack.
I've heard that too. And basically, you remember early on when we first heard that Heather Heyer died, they were showing pictures of her, a picture of her, and then you see actual photos of her and they look completely different. I know that basically, she, was a smoker and just from what I've seen and heard.
Well, it's distressing. I mean, I guess I mean, the neo-Nazi James Alex Field, found guilty of murdering Heather Heyer, faces life in prison.
Yeah.
I mean, there's neo-Nazi and found guilty of murdering her. I mean, I guess I wonder if they don't have a serious causation problem there. If she died of a heart attack, he scared her to death, basically. He intended to scare her to death. I mean, because there's no evidence at all that he hit her and that he intentionally ran over her, basically, which is what you'd think vehicular homicide would be all about. It would be running over somebody with your tires, or just crushing them under the car somehow. And there's no evidence that he did that.
Yeah. Not from what I've heard or seen.
Well, it's just not something anybody has said in any publication that I've ever seen. There was no physical crushing. He didn't, hey, you can do damage with a car. We all know that. There's no doubt that an automobile is a deadly weapon. As a matter of fact, I mean, it's a topic for another evening, I guess. But about 100 times more people are killed by automobiles in the United States than are killed by guns. But nobody ever talks about outlawing automobiles.
Yeah. Or cigarettes in that matter.
Say again?
Or cigarettes in that matter.
Oh, yeah. I mean, cigarettes still a gigantic industry. So I don't know. I'm just I I am very worried about this because I feel like the primary purpose probably is to basically be a shot over our heads to all of us who do protest removal of Confederate monuments, who do, very sincerely believe that there's a group of people who want to replace us in this country, who they look at your blonde hair and they think that's got to go. Uh, and you we hear about this over and over and over again, that white people are the biggest problem in the world, and that our race that basically created the world as it is must now be removed. And there was something very inspirational about, they talk about how horrible the torchlight parade was. And I don't know if I've told you the story about the only member of Hitler Youth I've ever met in my life. Or at least the only one I've ever met here in New Orleans. I've traveled in Germany, so I may have met several over there. But certainly the only one I've ever met in New Orleans was a black guy. Have I told you this story?
No, sir.
A black guy who lived in Hamburg. And his father was in the German Navy. He was basically what they called a Mischling, mulatto, half black, half German. But his father was in the German Navy, and he was in Hitler Youth when he was a kid, and he lectured around New Orleans about his experiences. And that was in the 1990s. I don't know what's happened to him since, but he said that basically it was the greatest thing in the world because of these torchlight parades. He really got into the torchlight parades. And he said, life in Hamburg during the Great Depression, surprise, surprise, it was really boring. They weren't poor, they weren't starving. His dad, I guess, was still in the Navy when they lived there, so they weren't the worse off people by any stretch of the imagination. A lot of people were very poor in Germany in the late 20s and early 30s. They weren't, but this new movement that brought in the torchlight parades, and it really livened things up. And so I've sort of envied the people who got to do that. But it's turned into this horrible thing. I mean, people do get killed by cars every single day, and nobody tries to make a national heroes out of them. And Heather Heyer has become she's acquired this mythic status. And if she died of a heart attack due to being maybe stressed out by the riots or something, I mean, you were stressed out, right?
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
You're not susceptible. You're a strong guy. So, the probability of you having a heart attack was probably very low, no matter how stressed out you were. But if you're 33, you said?
Oh, 32.
32, okay. And isn't that about how old Heather Heyer was?
I believe she was 33, so I think she was a year older than I am.
Okay. But I mean, so obviously, if she died of a heart attack, she was an unusual 33-year-old. Very few 33-year-olds die of heart attacks.
Yeah, I mean, because I saw some of the photos of her, what she actually looked like, and she could have actually passed off for someone in her 40s.
Before or after she died?
No, before she died.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's cruel. It is cruel. I guess we are being a little bit cruel to her right now, but until I read this, we've got to find out more about these Instagram photos. We've got to look into that because until I read about these Instagram photos of James Alec Fields envisioning the crime before it happened, I hadn't heard anything in the evidence that would convince me that he had any murderous intent.
No. And also, here's another fact that they're not telling you about. Heather Heyer was supposedly a member of the Democratic Socialists of America as well.
That doesn't automatically mean she deserved to die.
No, I mean, but yeah, I'm just saying that, everyone's trying to make her into a martyr. I, I guess in a way, she's almost become like the new Horst Wessel.
I mean, I know the Horst Wessel song, but for the benefit of those who may not be well versed in 1930s German lore, tell us the story of Horst Wessel.
I believe he was an young SA office stormtrooper.
Sturmabteilung.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sturmabteilung.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm trying to remember how exactly. Because there's various stories about Horst Wessel, but all I can say is that then the National Socialists, prompted him up and made him into a, kind of a martyr.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but you're saying they're making Heather Heyer into that sort of model, martyr, but for the other side, not for our side in this case.
No, certainly not. And of course, I would say that every side, does kind of use a martyr in some way or another.
Yeah. The manipulation. I mean, a line from I don't know. Did you ever watch the TV show Angel?
I'm trying to think. When was it done?
Ended in 2004, like 99 to 2004, or something like that.
Angel. Well,
it was a spinoff of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, I was thinking about. No, I didn't actually see it.
There's a line in there about the psychological importance of death, that death is the only thing that ever changes anything. And that's again the eerie coincidences of the days that Pearl Harbor plus 77, 1 week to the minute. Right now is exactly one week to the minute since George H.W. Bush died.
Right. Yeah. And also,
I heard about it at 11/11.
Right. Hmm? And also, I was kind of thinking about an old episode from The Twilight Zone where there was this supposed neo-Nazi leader played by a very young late Dennis Hopper, who, basically he gets inspiration from a mysterious guy, on how to better his speeches and how to, better win over a crowd. And then there's one scene where, the mysterious guy, who, not mentioning spoiler alerts later, is revealed to be Hitler, tells him, if you need a martyr, pick the person who is the least functional or the most useless person, and make him into a powerful figure for your cause.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. I mean, that's certainly a recurring theme. I mean, what that reminds me of more than anything is pick the most useless, poorly designed building in your metropolis, especially if there's a pair of them, and take them down. because you probably wanted to get rid of them anyhow, but you can turn them into beams of light and use those to inspire the people to give up their freedom, go to war, and generally transform the nation.
Yeah, September 11th.
Martyred buildings.
Yeah.
It's interesting. That's very. I'll have to look up that episode, but I was always when I'm old enough that there were like first run Twilight Zone when I was a kid, and it was always too scary for me. I couldn't handle it. But
Yeah.
I think now that I'm older, I probably could.
Yeah, but the episode is called "He Lives."
He lives. Oh, okay. Well, I will definitely have to look that up because that sounds interesting, and that certainly is an interesting statement. And I mean, it also kind of reminds me of a comparison that I saw between Charleston, June 2015, and this synagogue shooting in Pittsburgh recently. They killed old people who didn't have a lot of life expectancy, and it's almost like they carefully selected the people they could let go with the least problems.
Yeah, 'cause you would think they would kill, people that were a lot younger.
Well, you'd think that in particular Dylan Storm Roof, if he was a real white supremacist, and if he really was worried about black rape, for instance,
Right.
he did not kill a single potential rapist in his little spree. You don't go looking for potential rapists at African Methodist Episcopal churches, for one thing. This is not where they hang out. This is not, I mean, I'm a Christian. I know that we all have evil within us, but I don't think, in the city of New Orleans, I sure wouldn't go looking for rapists at my Episcopal church. And a rational person would not go looking. I mean, no matter a rational person with the most evil and homicidal intent would not go to an African Methodist Episcopal prayer, not midweek prayer meeting, yeah. Bible study. I mean, these are the least likely candidates for being dangerous criminals you can imagine. And that part of that story does not add up at all. No. So, I mean, that advice about look for martyrs among those that you can, the least effective people you've got. I mean, and the profile of the people in Pittsburgh who died is even more spectacular. They were all ancient. I mean, they weren't just old; they were just downright ancient. And again, if you're concerned about the Jewish question and you're looking for, likely victims, the old, even if these were all old Goldman Sachs bankers, for instance, which they weren't, but even if they were, they had done all the damage they could possibly do, and they weren't doing any more damage. They weren't going to be doing any more damage in this life. And there do seem to be these patterns in selection of victims of horrendous white supremacist crimes.
Yeah.
They are disposable people from the standpoint of the left.
Yeah, but basically they're still used as, martyrs for the God of diversity. I mean, it's almost to the left. It's almost like they're willing to sacrifice, these beloved symbols of, diversity to advance their cause.
I guess we don't know anything about James Alex Fields. I know nothing personal about him. I mean, a former teacher said he was fascinated by Nazism and Adolf Hitler. That makes him totally unique in the world, doesn't it? Nobody else ever been fascinated with those phenomena. He's facing life in prison. We live in a very strange world. Was there anything else? I mean, it's late at night. You've got to take a trip tomorrow, and I did not know that you had been at Charlottesville, so I'm glad to hear. Is there anything else you want to add about your experience at Charlottesville tonight?
Well, all I can say is that, for better or worse, it was one hell of an adventure that, I'll certainly tell my kids and grandkids in the future. I mean, I do not regret going there. I believe that the cause that we marched for and rallied for was right, and I believe in the future we will be proven right. I mean,
well, I was going to say I hope that your life will accumulate a lot more adventures, so that will just be the beginning of the Odyssey rather than the end. But Jordan, let's continue this conversation. I'm tired. I think you're kind of tired. You're an hour later than I am.
mm-hmm.
And it's just been an amazing Pearl Harbor plus 77 is all I can say.
Absolutely.
So let's say a little prayer for James Alex Field, that he find justice, that he, maybe can bring to light all the facts of what really happened in Charlottesville, that people like you and me discussing it can open the minds and hearts of some to be willing to listen to not just legal technicalities of defense that might be raised in a case like this, but questions like, did Heather Heyer really die of a heart attack? And if so, can another person driving a car really be held responsible for that in the way of murder? That is, I think, the most troubling thing. I mean, we pray at my church every Sunday for those who have authority to administer justice in the world. And I have very strong doubts about this being a just sentence. I have not read the transcripts yet. I don't think they're available. I am certainly willing to read and look at every bit of evidence, like this line that I had never heard anybody discuss before: images shared by Field on Instagram encouraging the running down of protesters, which were posted in the lead up to the Unite the Right rally, acted as key pieces of evidence in the trial. I had never heard of that before. And I just pray that those responsible for putting him on trial, those responsible for defending him, and the public that passes judgment without any particular authority will pay a great deal of attention to this and try to improve the quality of justice and enforcement in these United States. So on that note, have a good trip tomorrow, wherever you're going, and we shall continue this. And I have never posted on YouTube before, so I've now got to try to figure out how to use it, how to put it back on Facebook. So good night, Jordan. If you can help me at all with that, let me know. And just have a great Saturday, and perhaps we can continue this conversation later. Okay?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Thank you for joining me. You take care.
I will.